Praise the Lord, everyone. This is Elder Adrian Heyman going through the amendments to the Constitution and what it means for the saint of God. The amendments were mainly added to the Constitution or amended the Constitution to reflect the rights that are specifically for the people. There may be some that will also deal with the government itself, but most will deal with the people and how it affects them. We went through 2 amendments already, so right now we're on the 3rd one. It really shouldn't take a lot of explanation because much of what the 3rd Amendment is for, essentially those particular circumstances are at this particular juncture, how can I say it? Well, they're not necessary at this time. But let's go ahead with the 3rd Amendment and then we'll go from there. And it says, no soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. In those days, in the late 1700s, the British soldiers would arbitrarily commandeer a person's house. And they would set themselves up in there, and many times they would ravage the house, especially if it was for those that were revolutionaries or they had a hint of that. And so that led to a lot of very, let me put it this way, it resulted, I would say, in a very tense situation, if not volatile circumstance. And so when the leaders got together to form the Constitution and they began to make amendments, this was one of the things that was most pressing on their minds. So they made it a point not for any soldier to take a house and claim it as their own and run roughshod over it. What does it have to do now? Because in this particular time now, we have bases. We have places where essentially, or the soldiers will have a certain amount of allowance to go at least rent a particular place to stay. And from what I'm seeing on the bases, and I've been able to see with my brother, my niece, as well as my sisters, I've been on their bases. Like, for instance, Camp Pendleton, there's a base in San Pedro, in California, as well as, in fact, there's two or three of them, but they are housed pretty well, so they don't need to commandeer anyone's house nowadays. They're well taken care of by the government, so you don't see that particular thing going. But at the same time, that also, I'm not sure if it's in here, but since it hasn't happened much, even police forces should not commandeer a person's house. Now that does not mean that they cannot raid a house if it is suspected that wrongdoing has taken place. So, and in most cases, essentially, that has happened. But let me sort of pivot a little bit, because we know that the essence of the 3rd Amendment, much of it is not relevant anymore. We still have it just in case something happens, but it's not necessarily relevant for what's going on right now. However, the last thing I said regarding unlawful, and maybe that's what we have to go on with another particular amendment. So maybe I'll wait for that. Yes, actually, that's actually the next amendment. So I'll deal with that. What does that have to do with the saint of God? I would say this. Let's say there's someone in the armed services. They come to your church, and maybe they're being transferred to a particular base. Somehow their paperwork is messed up, so they don't have any place to stay. Now, understanding you have to know who these people are. You can't just bring in anyone and expose your home to, especially those that are of nefarious elements. But if it's been proven and shown that this person is actually who they say they are, they're a military personnel, maybe it takes a week, maybe it takes 2 weeks, maybe it takes only a day or two to get their stuff straight. In that instance, then it would not be beyond the called duty of a saint to let them bunk into your place of residence. Of course, assuming that you have the room. Not every house has room for extra inhabitants or dwellers. But maybe someone does have it. And that then allows you, as a saint of God, to show your kindness. That maybe it's a stranger, but it's one essentially who they know that if that person should get in trouble, they're going to be kicked out of whatever service that they're in, whether it's Navy, Army, Air Force, Marines, whatever happens to be. So they have an incentive not to do anything wrong. So in a specific instance like that, feel free to offer your house. Of course, they have to abide by your rules too. Just because they're part of the military does not give them carte blanche to overrun your rules. It is your house. That's what the Third Amendment deals with. They cannot just take over. But if they're willing to be a guest and they're willing to share in the responsibilities of the house, then it is no problem for the saint of God to offer their place of residence or to offer the use of whatever they need until they get settled on their feet. It's the least that we can do for people who have joined a particular occupation that requires them, if needed, to defend and die for our nation. They don't have to do it. At this point, no one has instituted a draft at this time. So all those that are in the armed services are more or less voluntary. Some go get it because they can't get a job anywhere else. Some because they just love to be able to be a part of the defense of the United States. Okay. But at the same time, they are essentially at the service of the U.S. government. And they have taken that responsibility for whatever reason. They've taken that responsibility. So what I would say after all this is be kind to those who are serving. They're going through a whole lot. Sometimes people don't understand what they're going through. They don't understand necessarily what they mean. They get trapped. They're sent places. Their orders are not to disobey a particular officer. That's nice to see it on TV, and it's a good thing to aspire to that. If you think your officer is doing something wrong, if you think your officer is doing something wrong, then you can disobey him. That doesn't work so easily. So, for those individuals that are part of the armed services, and understand this: being part of the armed services, neither Jesus nor any of the apostles told any of the centurions or anyone that happens to serve under the auspices of Rome to leave their occupations. But what they would happen, because the idea of thou shalt not kill, essentially that means that doesn't mean that there are lawful ways, and I hate to say it, we got to break this down. It means thou shalt not murder. Well, aren't that what they're doing in the armed services? Murdering? They're defending their specific country. It's up to the politicians and those that are ahead to tell them where they need to go. Unfortunately, these people are caught in the middle. And they have to do all within their power to fulfill the objectives of their leaders. Some are called conscientious objectors. That's fine. What they do, that they put them in places where they don't have to directly fight someone, but they have to be ready to defend if something happens with them. They can't just sit there, I consciously object, pow! That doesn't happen that way. So we're not to cause grief to them. They've taken a position that is not an easy one to deal with. They have to be in tip-top shape. They have to follow orders, and they have to be ready to sacrifice themselves. And hopefully we, as the civilian populace, when we elect our governors and our legislators and our presidents, that we keep that in mind and not unnecessarily put our soldiers in harm's way. But that's another talk for another instance. But just giving you the essence of what the Third Amendment is. Just know that most of the time it's not necessarily applicable to what's going on now, but even if that was the case, if there was a need for someone to have shelter and they're a member of the armed services, be ready to give it to them. Because by and large, these are people that have chosen a profession, as I said, that deals with defending this country against attacks from home and abroad. And many of us won't do that. They do. So may God bless you. May He keep you. And next time we'll be dealing with the Fourth Amendment, which definitely is applicable to what we're going through right now. God bless you. Take care of yourselves. In Jesus' name.